everybody, and welcome to the Feminine Principle Podcast, astrology for authentic living. My name is Mel with Energetic Principles.
And I'm Shawna with Neo Feminine Astrology.
And in this episode, we will be discussing the astrology for the week of November 6th, and what we have titled Inspiration and Innovation. The purpose of this podcast is to give inspiration and guidance for this week with real-life examples of what to expect.
The three major aspects that we'll talk about this week are the Sun in Scorpio, sextile Pluto, which is all about spiritual chiropractic. We'll also talk about the last quarter moon in Leo, which we're calling healing with self-praise. And then lastly, we'll talk about Saturn in Sagittarius, trine Uranus in Aries. And so this is about dedicated inspiration. So please remember that some of these aspects will influence you more than others based on what's literally happening in your life right now and your personal astrological makeup too. So notice what resonates with you most and always use your intuition and your logic to decide what's best for you.
Yes, because you know you best. So yeah, Shawna, let's kick off this week's episode with a quick rundown of the moon's path through the zodiac and some other minor aspects for all you astro geeks out there. Well, now in our waning cycle, our lunar lady starts off the week in communicative Gemini. On Tuesday, she moves into sensitive Cancer, where she'll remain until moving into dramatic Leo on Thursday, where she'll head to her third quarter square, which we'll talk much more on that later in this episode. On Saturday, she moves into meticulous Virgo, where she'll finish out the weekend. Also of note, we have Venus, who is going to move into Scorpio on Tuesday, November 7th at 3:39 a.m. Pacific time, which is 11:39 a.m. Universal time and 9:39 p.m. Aussie Eastern time. So yeah, Shawna, share with us who's featured this week for our quotes and inspiration.
So this episode features quotes and inspiration from The Artist's Way, Creativity as a Spiritual Practice by Julia Cameron. And so we're really excited because the whole idea of this book, spirituality as a creative practice, blending the muse and the intuitive with the practice element, is really important regarding the astrology for this week.
Yes, I can see how that's important. Not only this week, but many weeks.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're excited to jump into these transits. One last note before we do, we want to give a shout out to all of our lovely patrons. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And so you can get the show notes every week by becoming a patron. When you get the show notes, you get all the specific dates of the transits that we talk about. You get the tarot. You get to know which tarot cards Mel pulled, the reflection questions, and you get to be a part of our cool community by becoming a patron. So you can find out more about that on our Facebook or Instagram by looking for Feminine Principle Podcast. And you can also find out more about becoming a patron at feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com.
Yes, because we love our patrons, and we're very, very much appreciative of anybody that is joining our little community here that is growing. And we have, Shawna and I have been brainstorming alternative features that we will hopefully be coming out with down the line. So just know that it is growing in many ways. So, and just a quick reminder in case anybody missed it last week, we do have our Facebook live replay of the full moon chat on Facebook if you want to go check that out. So I guess let's get started, right? Might as well get going here with our first aspect of the week, and that is the Sun in Scorpio, who is making a sextile to Pluto in Capricorn, and what we have titled Spiritual Chiropractic. And just some exacts on that. That aspect will be happening on Thursday, November 9th at 4:08 a.m. Pacific time, which is 12:08 p.m. Universal Time and 10:08 p.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And that will happen at 17 degrees Scorpio and Capricorn. So Shawna, kick us in with your first quote.
So she says, for most of us, the idea that the Creator encourages creativity or inspiration is a radical thought. What we are talking about is an induced or invited spiritual experience. I refer to this process as spiritual chiropractic. We undertake certain spiritual exercises to achieve alignment with the creative energy of the universe. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is so appropriate for the sun in Scorpio making this aspect to Pluto, because the sun is our spiritual energy. It's our ego. It's what it is that we have to give. It's our life force energy. And this is a helpful aspect with Pluto. So Pluto, if it's in a square or an opposition, it can challenge us, and it can have more of an effect of something falling away. But with this being a sextile, this is a little bit different. It's more of a helpful aspect, and Pluto can bring in this like realignment with the spirit. This where it might be kind of like a chiropractic appointment, where it's kind of like intense for a hot second, but then you're like, okay, I feel good, and I feel more aligned with the inspiration that I'm receiving.
Yes. And, I do have to I agree with you, Shawna, on a lot of levels there. And the only thing I want to say about when Pluto gets involved, regardless of if it is a hard aspect or a softer aspect, because Pluto is always dealing with things that are somewhat difficult to deal with. Mm-hmm. So we do have to acknowledge the fact that even though this is not a square or an opposition or something that is really going to bring that tension to most people, this is a workable aspect where we are aligning ourselves with that integrity and speaking out where we need to, especially with other people. And but we have to realize that sometimes the things we have to talk about, Pluto matters that we have to talk about, are not always. They're getting us to where we need to go, but they're not always pleasant, mm-hmm. even when we're working with them. So just know that we are getting somewhere with this transit, and we are releasing certain things from our life, and we're gaining more awareness around where it is we're going, and how we're getting there, and what needs to be cut out or reworked in some way, because that's kind of what Pluto brings in. So just know that things might happen at this time that are easier to do, but are not always easy to feel. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense, Shawna?
I think what comes to mind is the word acceptance. I was talking to a friend last night actually about a certain situation with her family where where she doesn't like what's happening, but she knows what she needs to do about it, and she's okay with that.
Okay.
So
that's a perfect example.
Say that again?
That's a perfect example, I think, what you're saying here.
Yeah. And so I think that it's not as harsh as like a square in opposition, but like you say, that doesn't mean that it's pleasant.
Yeah.
But I think we know what we need to do. I mean, hopefully, and at a very deep level, at the very least, and the more that we do that thing, whatever it is that we need to do, that we actually, there is an alignment that's necessary. There is some type of movement to move more in line with what it is that reflects our values.
Yes. And just puts us in greater integrity, because that's what Pluto wants from us, is honesty. So here we have the ability to kind of share our truths in a more open and potent manner. But just know that not everyone's going to appreciate that. I guess that's what I'm getting at here, is we are all doing things that need to be done, but that doesn't make them easy. But it does make them workable. And that's where the sextile comes in, because ultimately even if it's unpleasant in some way, it's getting us to where we need to be. And I guess why I bring all this up is because let's talk about some specifics here, because we have, well, first of all, we have the moon in the late degrees of Cancer, so we're a little sensitive as it is. But the sun's dispositor, who is currently ruling over the chart in Scorpio, is Mars, who is in Libra, and who is actually approaching a square to Pluto. So it's within orb. So I feel like this is part of it. Here we have the sun's, current ruler, basically making a tensor aspect to Pluto, or about to. It's brewing. So these are kind of the starts of that brewing energy, or at least I think so, or it feels that way.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mel. That is a very real influence, even though it's subtly approaching. That is something to note where there may be a lot of because Mars and Pluto creates a bit of momentum, a bit of needing to take action. And so that further reinforces that there is something that we need to do possibly to move into alignment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting, a little side note, Shawna, I'm sure everybody's aware of all the, things that have been coming out with Jupiter and Scorpio now, like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey and all those kind of secrets that are coming out. What's interesting to me is I was looking at their charts, and they both have this Mars Pluto action. Like Mars square Pluto is in Weinstein's chart, and Mars conjunct Pluto is in his Kevin Spacey's. And so it would be interesting, I'm just throwing it out there, why why this aspect is brewing, if more of those types of things come out of the woodwork, because we're addressing this issue publicly. And finding justice around it, because we have that Mars and Libra. But of course, we cannot talk about this when we get to that aspect and it's exact. But, I got to throw that out there as we see it. Because that's the thing with aspects, is that they brew, right, Shawna? They're like, it's not like one day and it's like, boom, it's here. It's this building energy that we're culminating towards. And so we're building in these areas. So, but back to the sun sextile Pluto, it might be difficult, but it's going to, in the end, it's providing opportunity, because it's in the end, right, Shawna? We're in the last sextile before it makes its conjunction. It's like the last classical aspect before it makes that conjunction and kind of rejuvenates its cycle. So what do you think about that kind of wrapping up of, sun Pluto activity?
Yeah, I think that there's something that we need to make peace with, possibly. This, towards the end of the cycle, towards the end of any cycle, it is a time where we need to let go, or where we benefit by letting go, and using a little bit of discernment. And it's more about pulling in one's energy and instead of extending yourself out. And so I wonder if that means that maybe we say no more often to situations that are not in alignment with what it is that we really value. Maybe there is something hidden or a secret that we want to confess in a certain way, that we want to disclose. I don't know. Maybe so, maybe not. Maybe we do that in a way that's more private, such as if you have resentment towards a person, which is a very Plutonian kind of issue, any shame or resentment around a person or situation, maybe we write a letter about that, a letter that we never send, something like that. Those are all kinds of activities that I see for this period of time.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, because we're essentially we're wrapping up the cycle, and we're letting the dead weight go in some ways, and Scorpio is kind of the land of the muck, and what is like kind of like lives underneath, and is this not so clear, but likes to have it crystal clear. It wants to bring it up. It wants to unearth it. It has to in order to heal. So I feel like this is a really healing aspect as well, even if it might be a little painful, because, the sun is in Scorpio. Like it brings up things that we have to deal with issues that we have to move through so that we can transition in our lives to better places. And that's uncomfortable, and you have to be vulnerable in order to do so. But yeah, this is the releasing period, and this is where we start to plant the inclinations of new ideas, especially around Sun and Pluto, because Pluto, that's especially in Capricorn. Taking authority for ourselves, and maturity and disciplining our actions and being honest with ourselves and how we use our power correctly is coming up every time we get this Pluto contact. So I think hopefully we'll all be identifying with that so that we can step in, maybe go through these uncomfortable motions to step into this greater power and greater integrity that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I think you're right too, Mel. We may even during this time start to see the inklings of something new that's to come on the horizon next year. So the Sun will conjunct Pluto mid-January next year, or early January. So it'll be January 9th, which is it's so perfect and sweet that it happens around the new year. So it may even be a good time to start, to do a reflection now, a pre-reflection of how 2017 has been, what it is that you liked and didn't like, where you want to go in the next year and what that will look like.
Which is so funny, Shawna, as you say that. I was thinking, I'm like, damn. When the last conjunction happened, which I'm assuming was probably early January, because it moved very fast. That's when a lot of things started happening for me. Pluto-related things.
Oh, interesting.
Things falling away from my life and redirecting my energy to new endeavors, which I'm where I am right now and how we got here to begin with. So yeah, it is a very potent cycle. I think that's a great idea, Shawna, to kind of go back and assess, what that might mean. So because every time we're basically going to be repeating, not the same cycle, obviously it metamorphoses into different things as time goes on, but we are repeating this fresh start of Pluto and Capricorn for how many years, while Pluto is in Capricorn. So it's not like Groundhog's Day, where every year it's here, judging Pluto and Capricorn again. So we're just going to basically be working through these themes in these, Capricornian, Plutonian themes for several years. And we have been. Do you remember when Pluto went into Capricorn? I want to say 2009.
That sounds about right. I'm going to look it up while we're talking here.
Yeah. So we've been doing this. It was a while ago. So we're halfway through. Actually, I don't even think we're halfway through, but
yeah, we got a bit.
That's how slow it takes. I want to say, I think it's 2026 when Pluto leaves Capricorn.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it went in actually late January 2008.
Even earlier. Ooh, that makes a lot of sense for me. That's interesting.
Well, and the thing is, too, is that when it's really fascinating because as the Sun conjuncts Pluto every single year, it does so at a slightly different place. And so this means that people that, that have Pluto in aspect to their natal chart, no matter, where your planets are, it's going to be activating a slightly different area of the natal chart. And so it is really interesting to look back and to see if, what aspects were being made and what was happening. And I think you're right, Mel. It's it depends on what's happening and it'll always be a little bit different, but there will always be this theme around the birth, death, and rebirth process and how it is that we renew ourselves over and over again.
Yeah, especially around Capricorn issues. So, So just a little perspective on how that cycle works and how it's going to be a long time. And you're right, Shawna. We learn things as we go along because I like to look at the degrees kind of as a little bit of a growth aspect. Maybe the earlier degrees, or we're just getting settled into the energy. We're in middle degrees now, so we're pretty comfortable with it. I mean, I use that term loosely, but we've adjusted, and then I think we're going to be making more and more strides as we get into those later degrees of Capricorn as the years go by. So yeah. That being said, let's talk about these tarot cards, Shawna, because these tarot cards bring up they bring up some things to focus on. And so for the Sun sextile Pluto, I drew the Three of Swords as the focus and the Lovers as the grounding. And to be honest, there is a couple ways to look at this. There could be, some type of strife or like sorrow or a separation in a relationship to some extent, and you're going to have to build upon cooperating with people and really understanding others in order to get through this and to get through it honestly, because that's what Pluto is asking of us. And I would just warn against any ground any type of idealism you have around something. This when we're talking about Scorpio and Capricorn, Pluto, the Sun, these are all illuminating aspects, and it's time to get real. So try not, if you have an inkling that you're being deceived or you're deceiving yourself, this is a time to really make a choice around not sitting with that, like honoring, what is real, even if it's confusing or painful, and allowing decisions to be made for that to heal, essentially. So that's just one of the facets. But Shawna, I want to see how what you take on these two cards.
Yeah, when I first saw these, I was like, okay. so there is a heartbreak here. The Three of Swords it's about heartbreak, and that can be romantic. Often the Three of Swords comes up when there is a romantic situation that didn't work out the way that a person wanted it to. There is a heartbreak, but there's so many ways in which our heart breaks. When we're disappointed, something just doesn't work out the way that we really, really wanted it to, or the way that we thought that it would. There's a certain level of disappointment. And I think that these cards speak to a need to accept that loss, to accept that for what it is. And the Lovers is actually a really sweet encouragement, I think, to accept what is, and to focus not on trying to fix a situation that is broken or didn't work out, and to try and mold yourself into what it is that you need to do in order to salvage something. It's more like, okay, what do you need to do to build yourself back up, to individuate yourself, and what is it that you really value? All of these things, I think, are important with these cards.
Yeah, because, and Shawna, I really think this is where that Mars, that approaching square to Pluto is coming in, Mars in Libra. And Libra is a sign of partnerships and relating with others. But it is also the sign that focuses on, or rather has a hard time focusing on decision making. And we're talking about Pluto and Capricorn, Capricorn in particular, who is very decisive. That's kind of part of that authoritative bent to Capricorn, is the ability to make decisions. And so that's another thing about the Lovers, is a lot of times the Lovers paint two paths in our way. And we can go down either one, but the duty to ourselves is to go down the one that attracts us most. So we might have a decision that we have to make, and we might feel a little turmoil, confusion around making that choice, because it might result in some type of heartbreak, or something that we lose, or something that we feel sorrow for. But we have to make the right choice for us. In a sense. And along with that, a lot of times with the Three of Swords, a lot of times there's three things involved with the Three of Swords. That's why it's a card of like, another lover is there. But, the way I like to look at it is like maybe when you're, the Three of Swords can be like mental confusion sometimes where you're not seeing things clearly, or maybe you're ping-ponging things back and forth in your head, and that's creating some anxiety of some sorts. So I like to think that maybe the solution to all this is in some type of third option or a third party or something that is outside of the issue with another, or the decision, or however you want to look at that. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Like maybe if a person, maybe if we're having a conflict, we need to get a mediator involved.
That's it. Perfect.
That actually goes along really well with Mars and Libra squaring Pluto, that approaching. It's like, maybe we need a mediator to help us out here.
Yeah. So say you are that couple that's in conflict and you're dealing with some issues and you don't know where it's headed and you're confused and it doesn't feel so great. Bring in someone. Like, let's get a different opinion here. Let's get everybody on board to heal this, because that's essentially what we're going for. Is we're trying to get to an area to where we can heal ourselves. And the Three of Swords is known for its mental areas of confusion and not knowing what to do, and the mind kind of, because we're talking about swords, so the mind is kind of building up this sorrow in a sense. So I would say, especially once again, that Mars, I know it's not the aspect, but Mars in Libra, we're bringing that air element in again. So take a good look at how you're mentally processing this. And like you were saying, Shawna, earlier, like the whole, idea of the of having something, set in your mind, or like a way to envision it. Maybe we have to look at it a little different. Like that vision's not working. That vision's not realistic. That vision is not honoring the truth of the situation. And so sticking in that vision is not really allowing the situation to heal and move beyond the point it is now.
Yep.
So just a little takeaway for that Sun sextile Pluto. So that's the thing with astrology, is it's not just an aspect. It's several. It's a lot of things that get involved to kind of paint the picture of, what's going on. So some questions to take away here. I would ask myself, is there a realignment that needs to happen within my own integrity? Do I need a spiritual chiropractic? I would ask, is there a choice to be made in my life right now? Can I work through any confusion or potential loss to go the path I desire most? And then lastly, I would ask, when confronted with the problem of opposites, have I attempted to look at it from multiple perspectives? Is there a potential third option that can bring about a peaceful solution? And so
nice.
that is what I would ask myself. All right, so let's talk about our next aspect here. And we have that last quarter moon in Leo, which we are titling Healing with Self-Praise. And some exacts on that. That'll be happening on Friday, November 10th at 12:36 p.m. Pacific time, which is 8:36 p.m. Universal Time, and Saturday, the 11th at 6:36 a.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And that's going to happen at 18 degrees Leo. And the sun will be at Scorpio, but 18 degrees Leo is where we're having that. So Shawna, kick us in with your next quote.
So, because the antidote for shame is self-love and self-praise, this is what I did. I went for a walk through Rock Creek Park. I prayed. I made a list for myself of past compliments and good reviews. I did not tell myself it doesn't matter, but I did tell my inner child self, you will heal. And so I love this quote because it speaks so much to what's needed anytime that we have Leo energy around. Leo loves to be adored. Leo loves to be praised. And this is not narcissistic. It actually builds a sense of self-confidence when we remind ourselves how amazing we are. And so especially because this is the last quarter phase of the moon in Leo, and this is a time where we may be reflecting and having a certain amount of crisis of consciousness, so to speak. It is really important this week that we do give ourselves praise and love and remind ourselves that we do matter.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting Leo moon. And who would know best than our resident Leo moon, Shawna McGrath?
My moon is in Leo. Yes, it is.
Yes, but that's the thing is, when you have that energy personally, you are the best representative for it. So hearing your experience and how you think about it is very valuable. So yeah, Shawna, the tensions are rising internally, basically, as we have our crisis in consciousness, because just a refresher for any of you listeners, if you haven't heard us talk about the last quarter before, this is basically the last square that the moon makes to the sun before we have our new moon again. So it's a tension of energy that basically happens usually internally to where we're working through certain things that are at cross purposes inside emotionally, and hence why it's called the crisis in consciousness, right, Shawna? You have to. We have the crisis within. So just a little specifics here. I find it interesting that we're going to have this last quarter moon actually conjunct the North Node, where the North Node is in Leo. So I feel like there's part of this that is this test of this crisis or this tension, in a sense, is that we need to push through, is basically setting us up for part of our soul mission that we're on right now. Like there is a purpose to this tension to get us put in a better spot to where we need to be, because ultimately we are building this tension off of that new moon in Libra that happened how long ago was it now, Shawna? I'm assuming like 3 weeks.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, in the last degrees of Libra. So we've been building off kind of those partnership energies, and really what we were just talking about in the last segment. That Mars and Pluto, Mars and Libra squaring Pluto, where we still have all that. We still have Libra energy going on since Mars is hanging out there. So that's kind of what the whole cycle is rooted in. But here we are in Leo. And Leo matters are coming to the forefront. So, Shawna, okay, I'm going to give you a little list, and I want you to pick off whatever one you want to go with here. So basically, with the last quarter moon, we have that it's basically conjunct the North Node. We have Venus, who's now in Scorpio, approaching its conjunction with Jupiter, which we're going to talk about probably next week. We have Mercury approaching a square to Neptune. And we have that Mars square Pluto. So there's a lot of different tensions in the air. So out of all that, which would you pick out to kind of how this might influence that? Or what? I mean, not even you have to pick that out, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you're right. There's a lot of different facets of this particular moment in time this week, and so I think the most important is what you mentioned, Mel, is that the moon will be conjunct the North Node. And so that does make me think that whatever crisis, internal reflection, it doesn't have to be, it may not be a crisis. It may just be more of like, we're like really grappling with something and trying to make sense of something or to make peace with something. That feels important. And it feels important towards where it is that we are growing spiritually, where it is that we are connecting with Leo qualities of being true to ourselves, being authentic to ourselves, what it is that brings us joy. And that feels connected with the last aspect that we were just talking about with the sun sextile Pluto. It's like, okay, how can we connect to what it is that is most authentic? And I would tie this back also to because we look to the ruler of Leo, which is the sun. The sun is in Scorpio, and then we have the sun in Scorpio with Venus and Jupiter in Scorpio. So that's, to me, that's also another, like that second in line as far as the influence. And Scorpio, so both signs, both Leo and Scorpio, they're fixed. There is like a fixation on something sometimes with these signs. And there's also a search for meaning. And so I think all of these issues may come up where it feels important that no matter what, that we're honest with ourselves, that we're true to ourselves, and that we don't make compromises.
Yeah, fixed positioning. Yes, because sometimes if we compromise too much, we're out of integrity with that Sun sextile Pluto aspect we were just talking about. Because essentially our current ruler of that last quarter moon in Leo is sextile Pluto right now. So these aspects are kind of tying into each other, and since they happen roughly around the same time, within a day or so, all this tension is brewing together. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And so we are looking for our confidence, right? I think that's kind of what we're trying to build, inner confidence right now. And especially stay within that integrity that we're talking about. And like Shawna just said, that kind of fixed position, like don't compromise your integrity, stand up and be confident about what it is you're feeling and where it is you are trying to go, and like where your essentially emotional self is calling you, because we got to be in equilibrium in both the spirit and the emotion. And this is kind of one of those aspects to where we're a little out of balance. And so we're trying to rein it back in. So that being said, Shawna, let's talk about some shadow aspects of Leo, because that's the thing is we're going for that confidence. We're going for that enthusiasm and being true to the self, and getting that creativity out there. But the thing is it's a tense aspect. So, you might want to be aware of something like maybe being over dramatic, especially internally. Like, you might not even be it with someone else. It might be like, oh my God, this is the worst situation. My life's falling apart. Why is it nobody notices? Why can't you see my life is falling apart? So that's one thing, they're kind of that drama and maybe a little egocentricity. But Shawna, how do you see some shadow aspects that might come into play?
Yeah, I think drama is definitely one. It's definitely, like looking for attention is also a shadow side of Leo, where we could be like, and that goes along with the drama, I think, where it's like, we want, like when Leo energy is around, there's a desire to feel special. And so if we don't feel special, we may try to do that in ways that are kind of annoying or off-putting, or it's like, it feels like almost desperate in a way. And so I think those are definite shadows where, if we are feeling unappreciated, or like the sky is falling and no one is noticing, that's a sign that we need to turn back inside. We need to turn back to ourselves, because at the end of the day, with Leo, it's kind of like a paradox, because the shadow side of Leo is trying to get attention. Leo actually needs attention, but it needs to do it because it's just being itself. Yeah. And so I think that's the most shadowiness is, trying to seek attention, or being overly dramatic, or being bossy to sometimes, like trying to tell other people what to do can sometimes be a Leo shadow side as well.
Yeah. Well, and you know what I think is interesting, Shawna, and those are all great points and very true. But I was looking at something about Stephen Forrest the other day, and he was talking about what was he saying? He was basically playing on the point that you were just playing on, like trying to get attention, but you need the attention. And so there's often this disconnect where, the Leo is acting out and being like, I'm the greatest thing ever, and look at all these things I can do. But really it's just saying, please love me. Like, just, I'm trying to show you what's going on, or like what I can do and all the great things about me. And, that can come off as being a superiority complex, or being prideful in some way. But really all the Leo wants is like as it's doing its tap dance over there is like, please love me. Like I'm not, I'm trying to impress you to get that love. So I think what you're saying, Shawna, about turning in to find that connection, that love connection, that confidence, in, that healthy ego sensation, is really found inside right now. So
yes.
Love yourself. So right?
Yes. And I love the way that Stephen Forrest talks about Leo. I think it's so on point because people can sense a motivation for a Leo. Like their life is just programmed that way to where it's like the trick for Leo energy, I think for all of us this moment of time, but Leo's always, that's really worked for me is I need to always focus about pleasing myself first whenever I do things. And I know that sounds selfish, but it's like if my shadow side is doing things because I think other people will like it, and people can sense that, and it's off-putting. So so for all of us, it's like, what do we like? What brings us joy? And when we share that, something that we find enjoyable, then that's when we actually get the love that we're really seeking.
Yeah, I think that's good insight and good advice, because it is a very personal process. That's the thing is, in natural order, the Leo is down at the bottom of the chart. It is about what the Leo wants. It really is. Because say you went out there and you're not thinking about, yourself first, in a healthy sense, like you were just saying, Shawna, you would come back emotionally distraught probably. Right? If you weren't making those considerations first. And that's the thing is, for all you Leo moons out there, you do have to, you are important. Your emotions are important. You do have to put those first, because if you're not, then you're going to be out of alignment. Then you're going to need that spiritual chiropractic we were talking about earlier.
You're going to need to go see Pluto.
Yes. Yeah, go see Pluto. And, and that's the thing is at the time of this last quarter, essentially we are seeing Pluto. That aspect is going on. And it is very appropriate that you titled it Healing with Self-Praise because, all these planets in Scorpio right now, we are healing. In order to do that, we have to find that connection inside, and kind of, and like kind of coddle our inner baby, our inner child in a sense. Like, it's okay. It's like, what do you want? Do you want, do you want some ice cream tonight? We can have some tonight. Like, what do you need to do right now just to be like, it's okay. It's like the way everything's going is totally fine. Just honor your emotions and what you need now in the moment. And take the steps to basically, help to heal yourself through your own acceptance of yourself. So, that being said, let's talk about this last quarter tarot, because I feel these cards definitely helped play in here. And I drew the moon as the focus and justice as the grounding. And there's a couple ways this can go. I'm going to start with saying, about taking a look at your instincts. Because a lot of times, when an instinct is instinctual, right? We just do it. And so now might be a good time to really take a look at your instincts. Do you trust them? Do you trust them enough to act upon them, and be guided by them? Or do you have the type of instinctual reaction that causes imbalance in your life? Because sometimes we instinctually know something, but we don't take action. And that's a problem. And then sometimes we're just so instinctually driven that we're just taking action and repeating these same emotional patterns, because that's essentially what happens in the last quarter. Is it's really our opportunity to break old emotional patterns, so that we can express ourselves in a different manner that is a little kind of not our usual self. So I would just take a look at, how you're instinctually responding, and if that is helping or hurting, and to really, balance the subjective with the objective, because that's another thing too, is we're talking about a subjective type of energy, in a sense, and it's a moon. Anything moon related is going to be subjective, but we want to bring a little objectivity in there, and balance out that feeling with logic, or vice versa if you need a little more logic in your feeling. So Shawna, how do you see the moon and justice kind of playing together?
Yeah, so I think these cards are saying pay attention to your intuition and your emotions, like you're saying, Mel. And then, where can we honor that and honor what it is that we're feeling? But then at the same time, check the drama at the door and not get so wrapped up in all of that, not get wrapped up in what could be or what we think is happening, and look at it just plain cause and effect. Like, okay, this is the situation. Yes, this is how I feel about it. But then what is literally happening? What do I want to happen? And then what do I want to do? What are the outcomes? And so I think that this is really about like disengaging with that Leo drama that we've talked about and making things very simple and clear while still staying connected to how it is that we feel.
I think that is very on point because if we don't check the drama at the door with that moon, we're talking about grounded in justice. So when something's grounded in justice and you bring that drama element in, you might say too much. You might get yourself in a position that you can't get out of, and you're going to find yourself on the wrong side of justice, because that's the thing, is it does have that kind of stark either side, like sometimes you're on the good side of justice and sometimes you're on the kind of shitty side of it. You're like, how did I get here? And sometimes you get there by those dramatic, type of situations. So I think that's very good advice, Shawna.
It reminds me of, do you remember Judge Judy? Is she still around?
She's still around. How could I forget Judge Judy?
Like she'll call your bullshit. She'll be like, listen, honey, so don't go see Judge Judy with your drama. You got to be, you got to keep it together.
Keep it together. Are you in this courtroom? I love her. She's hilarious. She's. It's so funny because it's like, check your drama at the door, but I'm going to be dramatic about you checking your drama.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. But, and some other things that might happen, because here's the thing is, the moon can bring up certain fears. And, when we are kind of operating from our subconscious or not knowing or like a place of uncertainty. Justice has a lot to do with the truth of something. And so you might be fearing the truth of something. If something's come up or you need to share something, because we just talked about the sun and Pluto connecting and how maybe this is an opportunity for certain secrets to be exposed so that we're in greater integrity and we can move on in certain areas of our lives. Chances are we might have fear around that, fear around honoring that truth of something, or fear around, a choice that affects your life or the others around you, whether you're making that choice or that choice is made outside of yourself. That can be an element that comes up right now as well. But you have to honor it, right? Right, Shawna? We have to face the truth. Because otherwise, the moon is very imaginative. So if we're not facing the truth and we're side skirting it in all these, visionary, imaginative ways, like, I'm going to look at it like this because it looks better like this over here, and that's when we can actually get a little bit disillusioned around what is right and wrong. In a situation, because that's another thing with justice is we're attending to what is right and what is wrong in a scenario. And there might be a little bit of a foggy veil right now of what is right and what is wrong. And ultimately we just got to find the balance, right?
Yep. We just got to look at it as like, this is what I'm doing. This is what's happening, like the literal cause and effect. And what kind of effect do we want? Yeah.
What effect do you want to make? Because, you're still in control of your actions.
Yes.
Essentially. Yes. So that being said, let's talk about some questions to take away for our last quarter moon in Leo. I'd ask myself, with the rise of internal tensions, can I nurture myself with an inner dialogue that promotes self-praise and self-love through objectivity? I would ask, where are my instincts pulling me? Do I need to honor that guidance? Or do they trigger an emotional pattern that needs a change of expression? And then lastly, I would ask, can I work through this inner conflict to find greater confidence? Can I make that last push towards this cycle's development?
Nice.
Because we are in a cycle, right, Shawna?
Always.
All right, so let's talk about our final aspect we have this week, and that is Saturn in Sagittarius, who's making a trine to Uranus in Aries. And what we have titled Dedicated Inspiration. So some exacts on that. It's actually going to happen on 11/11 at 1:41 a.m. Pacific time, which is 9:41 a.m. Universal Time, and 7:41 p.m. Aussie Eastern Time. And that trine is going to happen at 25 degrees Sagittarius and Aries. So Shawna, kick us in with your last quote.
These moments of clear inspiration require that we move into them on faith. We can practice these small leaps of faith daily in our pages and artist states. We can learn not only to listen, but also to hear with increasing accuracy that inspired, intuitive voice that says, do this, try this, say this. Learn to accept the possibility that the universe is helping you with what you are doing. And so I read this and I thought, oh my gosh, this is totally, and even just the entire work of The Artist's Way, that entire book, that entire process is so reflective of the archetypes of Saturn and Uranus coming together in a trine. Because Saturn is about skilled devotion, and it's about showing up every single day, every single week, and working towards a meaningful goal. And then Uranus, in contrast, is about that lightning bolt of inspiration that comes through, especially when we are working through a process. And it's kind of like the traditional artistic process or creative process or inspired process, where we come to our desk, we do what it is that we need to do every single day. We're diligent. And then sometimes an idea just hits us, and like this is the process of Saturn and Uranus, and this is what we will be feeling during this time.
And I don't know if I said on our exactitudes that this will be happening on Saturday. That's when 11/11 is. So this is kind of like a building into the weekend where we might have an inspiring weekend, right, Shawna? Where we want to, because we're talking about two fire signs. And when we're talking about fire signs, there is some sort of action in a sense, or like that inspiration to really begin something, that fire, that beginning inspiration, what we're talking about here. So I think this is a great aspect to really help us along with a lot of the changes that we've made in our lives recently, especially in the time that Saturn was retrograde, and now it's direct, and we're moving forward, putting those boundaries in place, because we have all these planets in Scorpio, and Scorpio is good at kind of putting boundaries, or should be. That's what they're working towards. You're not born out of the womb like, I'm putting a wall here, I'm putting a wall here. It's something you learn, but essentially that's the energy that's in place. So I find it very appropriate that we have this more mundane, long-term transit at this time, while we have all these Scorpio energies, so that we can put those boundaries in place to really dedicate ourselves to that inspiration, because inspiration is all well and good when the fire roars up and we're like, yeah, this is great. I have a great idea. We got to work on that. I'm like, I'm passionate about that. But unless we get those routines and rituals into place and kind of cement that enthusiasm in a routine of sorts, we're not going to get very far with it. But I feel like this trine, and the fact that it is it's a final trine, and it's a closing, that chances are we can finally be like, okay, I've I've learned so much about myself with Saturn and Sagittarius this whole time, that now we can really put those boundaries in place to work upon what we're inspired by.
Yeah, and I think I see it also as a time of fine-tuning or shifting what it is that we have been working on too, like where we've been working so hard and so diligently to to move to the next level, to get something right, to create something in our lives. And when Saturn comes into this trine with Uranus, maybe it's like it finally clicks, or we get into I see this of like getting into the flow of things. Because Saturn can sometimes create this effect where it feels really hard to get started. But then once we do get started, we get into a rhythm. And then even more so when Uranus comes into the mix, it's like we get that boost. We get that turbocharge happening.
I want to play to that real quick, Shawna. Like you're saying, like Saturn can sometimes bring that blocked energy where we can't. Okay, so I live with Mars square Saturn in my chart. Exactly, it's like pretty much the closest aspect I have, and I've got a lot of close ones. And I find that is so true. I'll be inspired to do things, or I'll be thinking about the things I have to do, and I will just be thinking about it. I'll be sitting there thinking about it, feeling overwhelmed by it in a sense. But once I get going, it's like the easiest of things to do. It is remarkable how once you get past that inner blockage, in a sense, of the work that is ahead of you, that it really just flows after that. And so I totally agree, Shawna. Like this could be, especially since it is the closing trine, that say we've been trying things, trying out new directions, or we've been wanting to, or trying to take steps to do so, but we've kind of been blocked here or there, and just things have gotten our way, or we haven't been able to muster the energy, whatever the situation is. Now we have the time with that free flowing energy to really get in the flow, like you're saying, and to the blockages aren't so much there any longer, or the blockage is, if it's there, it's something within you, and everything outside of you is like, okay, we're flowing here. Because the thing is that the moon at that time is in late degrees Leo. So we have a grand fire trine happening with Saturn, Uranus, and the moon. So I think we're going to be emotionally ready to get to work on whatever we're inspired by, or to try out some, new and exciting concept of some sort, or put some form around it, or maybe even try to enliven our normal routines and rituals, like what we already have going on. Like, how can we give that a fresh boost and a new shot of energy?
Yeah, and I think too, it's not too late to join the Saturn party, so to speak. So if we've been avoiding being dedicated to something, if we've been avoiding routine, like do it now. It's not too late to implement something, and it's not like, don't give up. I think is what I want to say too. Like it's better late than never.
Yeah, right? And that's the title of my autobiography. But if you watched our last Facebook Live, and that's true. That's a very Saturnian thing, like, don't give up. Just don't give up. And it's true. Like, even my boyfriend the other day, he comes home from a long day at work. He's like, I've been thinking about every time I drive home from work, I keep having this movie idea, this script idea, and it keeps coming in, this character. And I'm like, well, babe, you're like, character's not going to make itself. Like, so that's the thing, is if you get these repeated inspirations, and we have Saturn in Sagittarius, which is an inspirational sign, a risk-taking sign, and a big picture type of energy. So Saturn is in the energy to be on board with that type of thing, to take risks, to like try new things and develop certain ideas and in a calling we might have. And so I was told him, get to work at it. Like, just take an hour a day. I was asking questions. I'm like, well, what does this guy do? Or like, how did he get in the story? Like, I'm brainstorming with him, and he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, I'm asking you these questions.
No, so those are good. Like that's literally how you write a story, is you ask those kinds of questions like that. That's
exactly.
Cool.
And he was getting all flustered, and I'm like, baby, you don't have to have an answer. All I'm doing is giving you this kind of creative shot, like this boost, to like get your mind thinking. And so I find like this, because keep in mind, this is happening on Saturday, the 11th. but it's been brewing for a while, right, Shawna?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, and this is the third and final trine that we'll have with these two planets. So it is something that we've like contemplated before. Possibly the previous trines were December 24th, 2016. That was at 20 degrees Sag and Aries, and then again on May 18th, 2017 this year at 26 Sag and Aries.
Yeah, so we're last passing here. So this is not a new issue. It's more of a culmination of something that's been brewing for the last year, pretty much. And now it's time to take action. I think, right? We're
I think so.
Let's take some action here. And speaking of that, let's talk about these tarot cards because I think they're really played to the energy well. And so for Saturn trine Uranus, I drew the Magician as the focus and the Father of Cups as the grounding. And I when I put these two together, I kind of look at it like, because the Magician is really painting the picture here well.
Yeah.
And it's really about focusing, using our focused will and our directed thinking, and to combine that with our emotional maturity and the wisdom that we've gained over the last, the last year and even our whole lifetime, we're always gaining wisdom, I hope. And to be, to allow a little, to be aloof enough emotionally to take these, this passion, this inspiration, and these talents that we're developing to the next level. Because a lot of times, what happens when we're trying to manifest something or create something or go down a certain inspiration is that maybe emotions get in our way that don't allow us to go down those avenues. So there's just one aspect of it, but essentially a fire is being lit here, right, Shawna? So how do you think of these two cards together?
Yeah, so I love the Magician for this aspect because it just totally fits. It's like he's literally having one arm up to the sky, up to the heavens, up to Uranus, so to speak, and then one hand down to the ground, down to the earth, to Saturn. And he's like the conduit for these energies to merge together. He's the conduit for the earth and inspiration, which is manifesting. And so that feels very appropriate. And then with the Father of Cups, it's like, okay, how can we, like, I think of the cup as like holding the inspiration, the emotional energy, and the Father being that wise, like you're saying, Mel, that wisdom that can hold what it is that we're creating.
No, that's great, because how do we hold something? We have to hold it within a boundary, right? If there's no boundary, we can't hold anything. It'll just disperse and disappear. Like try putting water in nothing. It goes everywhere. So I think that's a great point. And that speaks to the king, because the king essentially, even though it's cups and we're talking about more emotional, heart-based, intuitive, artistic, compassionate type of energy. We're talking about the Father, which has some form, and that's why he has his aloofness and is able to have emotional depth but not have it overwhelm him. Is that he has a bit of form to him. So essentially we are putting some form into these inspirations that we're having, what we're trying to manifest, where we're trying to develop our talents. Because like I was saying with my BF earlier, is that, it's not like he's already a famous script writer or something, like these are new inclinations that are coming to him that he needs to develop more in order to have them become a reality. And that's what Saturn is reality. So if you have these new avenues of interest that are coming to you, you have to dedicate yourself to them to actually see them manifest, and to put that form into our real life situations. So yeah, I really think it's a very fertile time for self-empowerment, in a sense. The whole week is, I think.
I agree.
So, especially with all those, all our cards, we've had so many major arcana cards. So there's something to this week, I think. And yeah, we'd love to hear what everybody's how you guys are feeling going through this.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, whatever it is, the decisions that we're making definitely feel important this week.
Yes, they do. So some questions to take away for Saturn's trine to Uranus. I would ask myself, what inspiration is calling to me? Can I make a dedicated effort to see it come about? I would ask, can I combine my focused will and directed thinking with emotional maturity? Can I remain detached enough to harness an action into beginning? And then lastly, I would ask, what routines and rituals need enlivening? How can I go about a new direction in a responsible and structured manner? So,
nice
questions to ask upon this week. So that being said, Shawna, what did we learn? Oh my gosh. We learned that what we just said is probably going to be a little bit of an intense week with some things going on. But we're going to we're going to be right side up. I don't know if that's the right thing at the end of it.
Sunny side up.
Sunny side up. I like that. We learned that the sun in Scorpio is going to make a sextile to Pluto in Capricorn, and that Mars in Libra is really playing an aspect into all this. And so we might need a spiritual chiropractic of sorts to adjust ourselves into our own integrity. It may not be comfortable, but we will be more aligned when we do so. We learned that the last quarter moon is going to happen in Leo, and really the answer there is an internal one, and we need to heal ourselves with our own self-praise. And then lastly, we learned that Saturn in trine to Uranus is really going to bring us some dedicated inspiration that we can build upon and create some new structure in our life through. So Shawna, I know you have an excellent action item for them to take away, so please share.
Yes. So this combines all of this different energy with the sun and Pluto and the last quarter moon and the Uranus and Saturn. So this can be elaborate or it can take 2 minutes. It's up to you on how much time that you have. But every day this week, I want you to write down 3 different things. To write down 1 compliment about yourself, 1 fear that you have, and then 1 wish that you have. And so these are like really quick, like 1 sentence. It doesn't have to be a long journaling thing unless you want to do that. But what I'm going for is like a quick 2 to 5 minute exercise every single day. So like right when you wake up, or maybe if you're going to bed, if that feels better. But the 3 things: compliment about yourself, a fear that you have, and a wish or desire that you have every day this week.
I love that. And how perfect is that for Saturn trine Uranus, doing it every day. Like it's, that's how we create something that sticks by assessing it in a regimented manner. Yes, so I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so another way to get involved is to get involved with us on social media, to comment or tag us. Let us know how you're doing and how you're experiencing these transits this week. And then, of course, you can always become a patron of this podcast to show your appreciation and to get those show notes that are really cool. You can find out more about that at feminineprinciplepodcast.podbean.com.
Yes. And just a reminder, we do have that Facebook live replay that's on our Facebook page over at Feminine Principle Podcast. If you want to take a look at that, if you have not yet, we'd love to have you over there. So that being said, our joint, where you can find us together on Facebook, like I just said, at Feminine Principle Podcast, and that is the same for Instagram. And then if you need to find me, you can find me at energeticprinciples.com, and you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Energetic Principles. So Shawna, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook under Neo Feminine Astrology.
Yes. So we're there for you. We're there to reach out. We have services. We're here to see what you're doing this week with the activities and stuff. So if you want to share either to us individually or in our joint presence, we'd love to have you. So yeah, Shawna, any last words for our listeners this week?
Yeah, sending lots of love and asking that if you do enjoy this podcast, definitely leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, because that helps us to reach even more people. That helps us to get higher in the queue when people search for things like astrology. And then, of course, make sure that you are subscribed to get future episodes every single weekend.
Yes, because they come out on midnight on Sundays, Pacific time. So yes, if you could leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or on Facebook, either or both, that would be great. And most importantly, the best thing you can do to help us out is to tell a friend, because sharing is caring, right, Shawna?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm wishing you a wonderful week as well. And we do thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, may the stars be with you.
Namaste.